5, 4, 3, 2. Damn it. Okay, I'll fix that. It's fine. Everybody else clapped at the same time, so I'll fix mine later.
Okay.
I'd rather have 1 than like 5 messed up.
How did
That
you mess it up?
that's one of those things where it's like, are we doing it on one, or are we doing it like 3, 2, 1, and like?
Damn it, let's just do it again.
All right.
Okay.
So do it.
on 1. Okay, ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. On 1, guys. On 1.
You're listening to Where We Fit, a podcast that shines a light on the unique paths and voices in the marketing and communications industry, brought to you by the CCNY AAF Student Chapter. And you just witnessed what it's like to align audio so that it could be clipped to video later on in production. It's a lot harder than it looks, but we make it look easy, and we have fun doing it. I'm Eggie, an ad PR major at City College with a focus on account services and strategy.
And I'm Monique. I am a film and video production student and an advertising and public relations student. And welcome to our very last episode of the season, the wrap up of season 1. We're going to be talking about all of our experiences as a group of the AAF Student Chapter, of what it was like for all of us to bring our own collaborations into building this wonderful platform Where We Fit podcast. Hey guys, what's up?
Yes. Welcome to the rap party, and I'm gonna call you guys all out by name, because Monique and I are kind of like on the podcast every week, and we get a lot of mic time, but we wanted to pass the mic around, and I'm just gonna go based on how the boxes are set up in front of me, and go left to right, and I'm gonna start with producer extraordinaire Hazare. And I feel like I do want to start with you for a number of reasons. Number one, you make the sacrifice of doing this on your lunch break, so you're special. And number two, you are actually one of the students that is not from the ad PR program, but joined the podcast as a producer to bring your skill set. So I kind of want to hear about your experiences, because you kind of came in at a different point than the rest of us on the call.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me on both all the casts and as well as just being a part of the team. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed myself. And also, I've learned a lot more about ad and PR than I thought I would. Secondly, my experience was, like I said, it was a lot of fun. And the first one, I was stressed out of my mind because I was just having flashback after flashback of just stage management from back at BMCC, and just managing everybody, making sure it's on time, making sure it's happening when it needs to happen. And then I started to get more comfortable and into it. I was like, it's not that bad. They know what they're doing. They know what they're saying. They're on point. All I got to do is just check the time and make sure that they're doing all right with it. And honestly, it took a lot of stress off my shoulders after the first session. And then everything after that just felt like a breeze. And it was a great time, great experience, like I said. And yeah, it's a great way to stay in shape.
I am curious, like, how... Whoa, that's all that screaming got my throat, like, really. It's, like, really dry in here, guys. I'm very curious about, like, where you see yourself, because, like Eggie said, you didn't come onto the club, like, under traditional norms, and you're not in the ad program at all. So where do you see yourself, like, going forward with this club in the future?
Well, in the near future, really the only plans I have is helping you guys find the people that we need for the club to keep it running, to keep it happening. Because it's a great club. It's fun. It's been fantastic. And anybody who gets to join in is going to love it. And that's just a fact. Anything else like beyond that, just being more active in the club as best I can. Helping out with the podcast as much as I can, focusing, being from the film and video production side and having little to no experience in the ad PR side really helped me, I think, in ways that somebody that's in the ad and PR may not have seen the podcast. And by that, I mean, I was able to just focus on the visual and the audio and keeping everything in check and in line, and not having to worry about, oh, they said this and that was incorrect. Like that's the wrong term. You can't use that definition. I didn't have to worry about that. I was just listening, observing, and making sure that things were running according to schedule and taking notes where to improve the overall quality of the podcast. And I thought that that was a lot of fun. Um, Other than that, maybe speaking more on the podcast from time to time. I know that we spoke about doing the hosting. I don't know if we can say that. I know this is a wrap. I don't know if that's like under the wrap.
Damn, that's don't give us a sneak peek right now. Like
We're having an under wraps party.
And under
So,
okay.
you know.
So maybe it's talking to you guys more about doing that and seeing how that could happen. And if you guys are okay with me being a host and it works out with my schedule, then I'll do as best I can to help find a good producer replacement. But otherwise, staying on as producer would be fantastic.
Word. I mean, and listen, there'll probably never be any replacements, right? I don't believe in replacements. Nobody takes the place of anyone. It's a brand new position once the next person has it, and it could grow in a bunch of different ways. And I think that, so we started at the tail end. And I want to kind of bring it back to the beginning a little bit because it's the other bookend, right? And the other bookend has to be Professor Garcia, mostly because you were the originator, right? So you're the DJ Cool Herc of this right now. So I just want to give the mic over to you for two things. Number one, when you began the quest to bring back the AAF club, is this a place you imagined it going to?
I mean, overall, I don't think we imagined being in this situation, place, in circumstances in any fashion. I think, the beauty of what has happened in starting the podcast is just attracting the right people at the right time and the right sort of situation. There's been an ongoing effort to establish and reestablish the CCNY AF over the years. It kind of has seen some high points, has, kind of fallen off a little bit, and that's largely because it's a student-led initiative. But what I think is so great and kind of, now being at the wheel is that we've started to see this sort of groundswell and efforts like this have to be grassroots. They have to be from the grounds up. And so that's why I'm so grateful and so inspired for all of the hard work you all have put in. You said I'm like the bookend or I thought like the glue for a second. Really, I'm just trying to take down whatever barriers get in your way. This was an initiative that was entirely of your vision, of your effort. The fact that I was sold as soon as I heard the idea. And of course, I start to ask myself, okay, well, what can I do with this? How can I add to it, right? I'm just the gasoline poured on the fire at this point. And so I'm excited to talk a little bit under wraps about what we could do going into next semester and season two, because I think there's so much possibility in what we've built here. And I really hope that folks will grab onto this and kind of own it as their effort as well, because the experiences that I know you all have gotten, the value that this experience will have on your resume and when you start interviewing, and you know how people are always like, you need experience before you get a job. Well, you need a job before you get experience. Well, you all have experience that a lot of folks who are actually working don't have in starting something like this. And you did it while you were juggling 16 classes and 40 jobs and whatever else CCNY students are known to do. And you made something incredible happen and had some awesome guest speakers. So I think, you have built a platform of excellence, and I'm excited to kind of be a part of it. And you all pulled me into it. I've been a part of the CCNYF just trying to be like, hey, this is a good idea. What do you think we should do with it? And you took it to places that I didn't even think would possibly work out or happen somehow. So this has been an exciting experience to be a part of, and I'm just excited to kind of take it to the next level with all of you in the next semester.
And I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm gonna take the part about not realizing that the plan could even be executed, right? Because it started off as an idea like, hey, let's create this podcast because it's a low barrier of entry and it gives us an opportunity to all get experience building a brand and building a product and kind of looking at it from that perspective. But, and on inception, like the end or let's say the rap party wasn't in sight, right? Like it was kind of like just kind of walking into the dark woods. And with that in mind, I want to put Monique on the spot because, and I'm going to preface this because she never told me this. I just felt it from her Slack messages. I felt it that at one point at the beginning, she thought this was not possible. She thought that this was not going to happen. There was just no way. And it's just like, what are we doing? Look, she's on the spot. She never told me this. I'm telling you. It was just all just reading her Slack energy, right? And then
So you can read my mind.
at some point, it really turned on. And it was like, oh, shit. We could do... Oh, wait, I cursed. We could do this. Monique, so I want to ask you directly right now, when did it turn for you? When was it like, okay, you know what? This is possible, and not only is it possible, we're gonna do this.
Yeah. Honestly, like, when I first joined, I was really excited for it, and I had a lot of ideas and a lot of things that I could contribute to the project. So I was like, let's go. I was super amped, and I think at one point, like, it had a very slow start. But honestly, that was because, which I think this is unique to this season in specifically, because it was a lot of like the pre-production guidelines that we were setting up. So, and I was kind of taking it for what it was. I was like, all right, like, when is when are we going to start going with this? And then it was like, boom, right? Like it just skyrocketed into like a whole like timeline. And it was like deadline. And I was like, oh God, okay. And I'm a hard worker, especially when it comes to something that I'm passionate about. And I will give 200% of my energy into something. But the most frustrating part, and I did share this to Hazare a while ago, is that if I feel like I'm the only one giving, it becomes frustrating because not only in that aspect of it, I had a lot of other obligations. Like every time I introduce myself, I introduce a huge part of my life that I'm juggling 2 majors and I'm doing this club and I'm working and I'm X, Y, and Z, right? Like everybody else got like a bunch of things on their plate. And so I was no exception to that. And it was like, is this going to happen? Am I going to really be a part of this? And I'm not going to lie to you, there was a point where I was like, maybe I should just like peace out. You know what I mean? Like, but then like once we recorded like the first episode, that's when things turned around completely for me because I was in the hot spot and we didn't rehearse. It was not perfect by any means. Like take it from Hazare and I, this was not on the level of production quality that we would like it to be. But as soon as we got into the seat in that conversation, the first time I saw Eggie like talk off script, I was like, oh, we're a talented bunch. Like we got a lot of skills to offer this podcast, this platform. And like Eggie wasn't lying when he said like, throw me onto a screen, I can talk to anybody. I was like, oh, okay. And it made me like really understand the team that I was working with, and it gave me the push to really like believe in every person behind each job, each criteria, and just not worry about it. I'd be like, I don't have to worry about this because I know it's going to get done. Francini is going to always like post everything she got to do. Dakota is going to make great music for us. Eggie's going to always like talk to whoever he wants to and kill it and freaking kill it. So, now I'm excited for the future and I'm sad to see the seniors go. But I'm super excited now that we have built this platform thus far. It's only going to go up from here.
And if I may jump in, what has made this so exciting to witness is that in essence, you all have kind of built a mini agency of sorts, and you've actually like created a content studio in some effect. I think, because we have such a mixed skill set here, and I can serve as a Swiss Army knife of sorts, even though I try to let you all lead the initiative. I think it's been incredible to witness that just happen so organically, and really bring out the best in all of you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for anything kind said about me. Uh, Specifically the jibber jabber. I love jibber jabbering. That's my jam. But you mentioned something that really stuck out, and it was like about how and I'm speaking about Monique. You mentioned that when you feel like you're the only one pulling, it gets frustrating because you kind of feel like you're carrying the load or moving the team. And I think that in terms of carrying the load, I feel like this makes me. First of all, we need to introduce Francini because her mic's been off the whole time. She's just not gonna jump in. She's always got her head in the books. But I really, really, really I feel like this doesn't happen without Francini. And obviously it doesn't happen with each one of us. But there was a point in time where Francini just stepped inside the booth, tore her suit off, and just came out in a Superman cape. And it was like Francini did boom, Francini did boom, Francini did boom. And I was like, damn, look at Francini go. So Francini, tell us a little bit about your experience because Jesus, you wore a lot of hats and you wore them all well.
Thank you guys for that. For me, it was really fun having sort of a creative outlet outside of work and school, and it also let me come a little bit out of my shell because I tend to be a little bit introverted, so this helped me with that as well. And also I like to be sort of how Natalie said it in one of our podcasts. I like to be that person with the extra markers because I feel like I can learn my place. I don't know what I'm good at yet, so the only way I can figure that out is by wearing many different hats. I'm not the best graphic designer, but I try. So yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely showed up with the markers. And I think that you brought up that Natalie episode, and that episode was also pretty impactful for me. It's that that was one that really stood out because I think that even during our preliminary meeting with her, it was kind of like she understood exactly where we were coming from, right? And not to say that any other guest didn't, because every guest, understood our how we fit and what the purpose of the podcast was. But Natalie really stood out for me in terms of just career paths and career tracks and just the small little details that'll help you kind of advance, So I really love Natalie's episode for that as well. And Dakota, you're back. I see you on camera. We heard that your mic is working now. And for those of you that don't know, Dakota does all of our sound design. She comes up with nifty tunes. So she is a very vocal part of the podcast without ever saying a word. So every episode, you're not just hearing Monique and I, you're also hearing Dakota through her music. Dakota, how's your experience been doing the podcast?
This club and the podcast means so much to me. I had I had just basically stumbled upon you guys because I had decided to apply for ad PR in the beginning of September, and my teacher was like, you should join this club, see how it goes. And I was like, okay. So I do, and I meet all you wonderful people, and I absolutely adore it. I've always loved music. I switched because I didn't really think it was going to be my career path, but I think definitely this club has definitely let me explore my musical talent and stuff like that. I love how creative you guys let me be, especially the drums thing. I try to use as many drums as possible now. But I absolutely adore you guys. I am so excited for everything coming forward, and especially the Super Bowl stuff next semester. I'm super excited for that. I've already started going through that. But I'm always I read all the chats. I'm always ready to do something. You want to start another thing, I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm down. You're I will spend all day doing whatever you guys want me to do.
Your laugh is so infectious that I can't stop laughing. I'm just yo, you're right. I
Oh
love
my
it
God.
here.
Sorry.
I love it here.
Like, I like always laugh every time I talk. I like cannot.
She was like, I adore you guys. I was like, I adore you.
I like seriously love you guys. Like, I'm so happy that I joined this team. Yes, I love it.
That's so awesome. And let me ask you, Dakota, just because I got you here, let me ask you directly. And I'm going to ask the rest of you guys this too. So you got some more time to think, but I'm putting Dakota on the spot. Next season of the podcast, what's one thing that you would like to hear about? If it could be anything. Because right now we have a blank slate. We could go out and try to get anybody. Everybody's home.
I think what happened to me, like the struggles of like kind of choosing a career path, because I didn't think I wanted to do ad PR until I joined this, and I had a few like people I had to like do meetings with because I was like, I don't know what I want in life. But I definitely want us to do something where we can like just give advice to people that don't know where they are right now. And, like, so we can just, push them to the right direction. It's really needed because a lot of people don't have that, especially, like, at home or through friends. And, like, me, last semester, I relied a lot on, like, adults because I'm only, like, a sophomore now. So I'm still just in the new area of life that I'm in right now. So I think that's definitely something that I want to, like, branch out on.
That's really interesting because I 100% agree. And I think this is really what this platform is for, to like really inspire conversation about like figuring out, because the essence of this conversation outside looking in is like, oh, it's like a guide to the marketing and communications path. But then we have people like Hazare, who's not even in the program, but still is like participating, right? So it kind of goes into question of like, I think moving forward, and this is what Eggie had mentioned before in one of our previous meetings, is that we're not going to stick to just like the ad PR lane of things. It's not going to always go in that direction. And I think it is important to open that conversation up to multiple industries, especially in the communications field, because it's so vast. People don't really realize that. Like, it's not just like statistics and like graphs and stuff. Like, it involves a lot of creativity. And I have a question for Eggie. I'm going to turn the spot over to him because he's been grilling us right now.
Yeah, I came to grill.
He was like, so what up? Like, I was like, whoa.
He's got his apron and spatula on.
Yeah, I came to grill. I've been saving that question for Monique since like 2 weeks ago. I was like, yo, I know what I'm going to ask her at this wrap party because I know she was out.
But, and Dakota mentioned this too, like she joined this platform because it allowed creativity. Francini mentioned it too, creativity, right? And you were talking about how you built this platform up versus like the PRSA, right? And the PRSA was not as creative and you wanted a creative outlet, right? So we all kind of joined this space for creativity, and I want people to know, like watching this podcast now, like thinking about if they want to join or not this club, that we offer a different side in the industry, that we can be creative. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about this industry of like whether or not there's room for creativity, and it's always so necessary and so needed, and those skill sets are fundamental to building projects up. So you mentioned that you wanted to do something creative, and that's sort of like what, and this is for Eggie, like why you kind of made this platform. And I understand sort of the idea of like what inspired you to actually create Where We Fit. But tell me about the process, because we talked about it in our last meeting, but I want the audience to really like dive into this story as well. What was the whole like creative process and direction for you like creating this podcast to this point on?
So I think that the inspiration really came from the original approach to the program. So I think that originally Professor Garcia approached us, like a group of us, about kind of reigniting the ad PR club. And in its original iteration, we weren't able to get off the ground because we ran into some paperwork stuff, getting our paperwork right, and really just figuring out, all the steps that we need to have to be a club and be official. And then once we had all of those things kind of lined up, the following semester, which is when we had to do everything, COVID cut everything short. So we kind of had to just pack up our toys and go home. But what it did do was it created an opportunity to give us more time at the thinking board, right? Just at the drawing board, just we kind of had the core of what we wanted to do, which was we wanted to speak about professional development, we wanted to speak about resume building, and we wanted to speak about, just creating access for all of the things that the curriculum can't cover, right? Because I think that that's the conversation that really sparked it, was that I was speaking to Garcia about the curriculum not covering enough things, right? Like there's just not enough of the exciting elements of ad PR that are covered in the curriculum, and I think that the response was that the curriculum needs to be a baseline, right? Like it has to give you the baseline for you to kind of catapult forward. And then I started thinking about how can we catapult forward, right? We all have this baseline and we're all kind of working on this baseline, and we're at different levels of that baseline. We need to do something together that exists outside of school. So I knew I wanted it to be kind of like content, because I really like just creative content. It's exciting in and of itself enough that people are attracted to do it, right? Like if we kind of just met up and just were like, and no shade to any of this because it's equally as important. But if it was like, yo, come to Ad Club so we could draft press releases for 2 hours, right? That is important, but it's not exciting, right? It's not sexy, right? So then it was kind of like, let's get into something that's content, and a podcast just had a low barrier of entry where we could kind of get it moving with just our efforts, and it's really the value of it is dependent on the effort that we put into it. And it just kind of hit, man. But that was the inspiration for it. The inspiration was really just like, I don't know. Oh, you know what? I'll say it. We could block it out if later on if Garcia doesn't like it. But it's like, it was just, there are benefits to being unofficial. And the benefits of being unofficial is that you can move fast and break things. To quote my man Zuckerberg, is you can move fast. Like it's like, yo, let's move fast. Like, yo, you have a podcast idea, let's execute it. If it doesn't work, you know what? We're not official. We'll do something next semester too, right? So it kind of created this like beautiful kind of like safety net of like, yo, let your mind go crazy. Let's figure out something that could work. And at the end of the day, it's okay because we're not official yet, right? But that's the kind of energy that I feel like that the club should just always maintain. It's like, even after being official, it's like just always maintain that energy, because it's like, yo, this should be like our like testing grounds. Like whatever you're thinking about in school, whatever drove you to ad PR, whatever excited you about ad PR, just know that in the club is a space where other people are just as excited about the same things that you were excited about. You just gotta not be shy and not be scared and kind of just go out and let it out, because no one can tell what's in your heart or in your mind. So it's like, you'll never know that all these other people want to do the same exact thing you're thinking about. You know what I mean? Because it was crazy to just have so many of us work together on something, because right now it's just the five of us, or the six of us plus Professor Garcia, but there were so many other people that couldn't join us today that contributed to the effort. You know what I mean? Whether it was kind of like move an email forward or get an invite out. It's like, it was so many people. It has to be at least 10 or 12 people on this production that all contributed some little piece. And like working in the group that size is crazy. Like it only happens at school, right? Like imagine trying to get 11 of your friends to all help you with some idea you have. It's never happening.
No way. Would never.
Yeah, no, Eggie, I think you're totally right on the money. Like, part of what my hope was just to find ways to get folks immersed in what the club experience could be. I mean, it's a student-led initiative, kind of like I said before, and the fact that that initiative has gone to these sort of lengths has been incredible. I'm kind of latching on to what you mentioned at the end, which is, imagine getting 11 of your colleagues like to do something. We kind of have that built into the program, which is the workshop class, which you know how challenging that can be. And I think it's a very different set of circumstances. And to your point about, this is unofficial, and so that makes it kind of, different in your mind. That's totally true, right? Because this is something you're not getting credit for, you're not getting paid for, but you are getting an incredible experience that's going to be killer on your resume. And I think that because we had folks who were, representing production, we had creative, we had audio, we had video folks, we had, our account management people sending out the emails and doing, and then we had our social media management. Like, we had all of those roles that you might find in an agency or in like a content studio. And we were all hands on here. So I think that's what I thought. That's what I take away from this experience, which is that you effectively created this yourself, right? And so if someone feels like, oh, well, maybe I don't fit into this club, you do. You just, need to kind of build those skill sets here, right? And you all have kind of done that organically. You're like, I can do this. Boom. Drop those skills. I can do that. All right. And then everyone kind of grabs onto what they want to do or what they can do. And the folks who maybe didn't have a skill set before, this is where you built it. Right? This is where it all came together. And so I think that's what my hope is that folks who are, either watching the podcast or maybe hear about it, like, they find this as an opportunity to kind of take those skills, use it as a sandbox, and just kind of jump in, because ultimately it winds up being what you create. And I think that we've started a formula that, can really kind of grow into all these different places. And I do have some vision in terms of like how we build this out strategically. Again, if you're building a little agency, now it's like, okay, well, what's the new business? How do we kind of build this up and, get momentum? So I think that this has been incredible to watch grow. And I'm excited to kind of help grow that into the new year, into season 2.
Yeah, if any audience members are watching and asking, do I fit here? We're called Where We Fit. So yes, you absolutely do fit. Do not hesitate to contact us and just ask questions. Like, absolutely join in. And I just gotta say, I did actually like update my resume and this looks nice on my resume. That's like, it's got like the bulletin board producer, editor, co-host. I was like, ooh, okay. Like, I can't wait to apply for jobs.
I love how you fanned yourself in real time.
Because I'm hot stuff, bro. All right, well, this has been a wonderful conversation to have. And honestly, I wish we could go on longer, if I'm being honest. But, that's what next season is for, right? So we don't know what next season's going to look like, but to next year, right? To new resolutions. Eggie, I'm so sad you're leaving us. This is your final episode with us, at least as like a part of the AAF club. We're going to have you back in the future as a guest. Just be prepared for that. Maybe not next season. That might be a little too soon.
Give me like 3 years.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll be here in 3 years.
Oh, no. We're going to be here in 3 years. I'm telling you. I'm making sure.
I hope I'm not here in 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to graduate.
Yeah, we're going to be here. And I can't wait till next season's rap party where I could come and hear about your experiences after next season. So it should be a lot of fun. Like, I'm actually upset that I'm graduating now. So it's like, that should tell you how much fun I've had, like, working with you guys. Like, it's been amazing.
Well, it's not goodbye. It's see you next time, I guess.
See you next Zoom.
See you next year. Hopefully we're not on Zoom next season or the next season after that. Hopefully we're actually like in a live studio where I can talk to people face to face. But this has been Where You Fit. Thank you so much for joining our wrap-up season party. I hope you enjoyed the AAF Student Chapter and everything we've built with this platform Where We Fit. We'll see you in the next season. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us to celebrate the end of our Season 1 with the wrap-up party. If you want, you can end here, but if you want to join us for the wrap-up aftermath party, stay tuned. We'll be going off mic, off script, indulging in the shenanigans and conversations of the AAF Student Chapter. So come on, it starts now. And
Beautiful.
It's a wrap.
yay!
Damn, you were saving that one. You had it like loaded.
He was
You're like,
waiting. He's
can't
like,
wait to say
Uh,
it. That's a
but I'm just
wrap
trying
on
to
a
get that
wrap.
to one
This,
line.
this is where we would be popping the bottles if we
Yeah.
had a budget for the bottles. Like everyone should be popping bottles
Word.
right now.
Go
He's having a
for
champagne
everybody.
war, shooting corks at each other.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Straight at the camera.
Like, we'll see you next year. Oh god. There's a documentary somewhere. I think it's on Hulu about the great American exception of anime. It's called something, but it's just how the West is now, or the West, us as Americans, now being more receptive and accepting of anime culture. Like, think back to when you're in middle school, you'd say, you even breathe anime. You even start saying ma, and people are just gonna look at you with a like, ugh.
Yo,
That's
I'm
just because it
not-
became mainstream, though.
Yeah,
Nah,
yeah.
anime's
You're
been
right.
around for a hot minute.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
you're
not gonna lie to
absolutely
you.
right.
In the,
That's because
that shit was big in the 90s, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I can't
Oh,
go
I
back any
agree with
further
you.
than the 90s, but
It's the
I
same
remember-
thing with comic books.
when
you know,
Netflix got an anime section, I'm like,
Yeah.
all right.
I was
Now
like,
it's
Keeping
mainstream.
up on some of the
Before
newer
it was like
animes
you're on
too, and it's like,
Crunchyroll, and people
Yeah.
are like,
Oh
"What
my
the is
no,
Crunchyroll?"
before
Yeah.
it was the bootleg websites.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Kiss
Before-
anime.
That's
rest
how
in
you had to,
peace.
that's the original.
See, and if we want to go even further back, it was the VHSs and
Yeah.
the random
We were
video game
contrabanding-
stores.
contrabanding Ninja Scrolls.
Hell
like
yeah.
crazy.
Word,
Ninja
right?
Scrolls
Oh,
was
Ninja
nuts.
Scroll's so good.
It was just like,
If you
yo, I
haven't
need
seen
that.
it, go watch it. Ninja Scroll's a great movie.
You're watching like
Yeah.
Evangelion, and like the screen
Yeah.
is just like flickering, and
Oh, they were going to do a live action of that movie, by the way.
oh my god.
Yeah. They also had plans of doing Cowboy Bebop live action.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Uh,
I remember that.
I don't
It's
like,
not
get
bad
it.
about it.
the dude got injured.
Good.
Uh,
I'm sorry.
Harold. I think Harold is playing him.
Oh,
You know, from
okay.
Harold
Yeah.
and Kumar.
Oh,
What's
wait.
his name?
I don't remember his name,
Oh,
Fuck,
no,
I
I know
know-
who
I
you're
know.
talking about.
Yeah.
but Harold's
That's
playing
weird.
him, I think.
John Cho?
Ben-
Something like that?
I think
Might
that's
be.
his name.
Might
Yeah.
be,
Benjamin-
but like he had like a really serious injury, and they had to like pause production for like
Oh,
a year or
damn.
something.
I believe it. What's her
Benedict
face?
Cumberbatch did a cosplay of Spike, and I've never seen something more realistic from anime. It's really, really ungodly realistic. It's kind of scary, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't make him do it, because I think Benedict Cumberbatch would have done a great job.
Listen, I think Benedict Cumberbatch would have done a great job, but I think that we got to stop making Asian characters white guys.
Oh,
Not
Who's
like not.
Spike? Who is Spike Asian though? He's from Mars. Just
Is he
because
from
it's
Mars?
Japanese.
I thought he was
Yeah.
from Asia Mars. Well, I do think that. Listen, look, I feel
Wrong.
listen, look,
That's fair.
listen, look. I feel like I understand he's not like technically like Earth 616 Asian,
But
Right.
he's Asian.
but I do feel like that he's
don't
an
even
opportunity. He's an opportunity to have a cool masculine Asian character
That's
on
true.
screen, and many
Sure.
of those don't exist. So it's
That's
like
true.
I like Benedict Cumberbatch, but get him out of here.
Yeah,
Fair
fact.
enough. Fair enough.
Stay in the Marvel
Like,
universe.
yeah, let's get some
right.
cool Asians.
He's already
on
Doctor
screen.
Strange. He doesn't need
Already
any more.
Doctor
Yeah,
Strange.
right.
You don't need to get even stranger.
I just think for
You
like
can go.
like material like that, you don't even need the star power.
No.
Like
That's
just get
true.
somebody who can look like them and play the role,
That's
and you're
it.
good.
The industry
know?
doesn't understand that. Honestly, like in our film practices, like we push for a lot of diversity. That's like the huge thing now. But to be honest, it sometimes comes off very disingenuous.
Oh,
It's like they ask for
Listen.
diversity roles just for the sake of like mainstream and
The only-
vanity.
the only thing worse than a lack of diversity is forced diversity. Because
Yes.
forced diversity
True.
is usually just stereotyping. Like I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
Star Wars episode. It was the second of the last triplets. but
Okay.
that one just had a galore of gratuitous diversity that ultimately was just like all of our main characters are going to be white guys and girls, but then we're just going to have random B cuts to like diversity picks. Like it's like all the plane drivers and like every secondary character. And it's like, nah, man, I think y'all missing the point.
More insulting.
Yeah.
It feels like
It's like y'all missing the point.
Yeah.
Like
it feels like the evolved version of what happened like earlier in films in like the 90s and the 80s and the 2000s. Like, don't worry, there's diversity. You saw that one black guy in the background? We're good.
We care.
It's like he waved.
See,
Nah.
I'm gonna jump in and say that's why I like Star Trek, because after
Because
TNG,
everyone's an alien and race
no,
doesn't matter.
no, not even that. After TNG, once we started getting like Deep Space Nine, you had a black captain. You had Voyager, where you had a woman captain who became admiral. So like they kind of do it right.
Yeah,
and
they did it up. Like they put him front and
Yeah.
center. Like the dude with the shades. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, LeVar Burton. Hell yeah.
That's his name.
Like, come on, bro.
He started reading Rainbow, by the way. Fun
Rainbow,
fact.
bro. He's a
Yeah.
classic. He's a classic. He's a legend. The more you know.
One thing that I feel that happens a lot, that's if they don't do it well, like we said, if they don't do well, it feels forced, right? But even sometimes when they do it well, it still almost feels forced in some form or fashion. For example, what was it?
We're just traumatized. They can do it like
Yeah.
they can do it absolutely right. We're like, no, it doesn't smell right.
Here's the weird part, and it's also starting to happen in anime now too. And I don't know if you guys have anyone that's been watching noticing, but for example, there's this new one that came out about sorcerers, right? Sorcerers and curses and demons. And this dude asks another dude, like, what kind of women are you into? And then a little bit after, or if you're into men, that's also fine. And then that was it. They kept moving on. I was like, did anybody else catch that?
One line in.
It's a difficult line to toe, yo.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult line to toe. And I'll tell you, like, it was mad funny because it's like it's difficult to like find your center. You know what I mean? And I think that's why like the ethics class is important, even though I'm not a huge fan of the way it's currently taught. But it's part of the ad PR like experience. But it's like a mandatory class that you guys are all gonna have to take. But the ethics course is mad important because it's like we're working with a client and it's like they wanted us to use like so their tagline is invest in the culture, and we changed it to invest in culture, right? And they made a huge fuss. Because they wanted to say the culture, right? And I just felt so bad about it because I'm just like, F you, because you know exactly why you want to call it the culture instead of culture. Like the culture part is just like, no, we need it to be the culture because we need black people. We need it to be the culture. And it's just like, but you just have to eat it, right? Because it's kind of like, all right, cool, man. You want it to be the culture, whatever. But it's like such a narrow, and excuse all my French on this call, but we're not posting any of this. But it's such a like narrow path where it's like
It doesn't matter.
We're
the audience for this.
Yeah, it's like
uncut.
Yeah.
the rap
We can
uncut.
edit this however we want.
It's like such a thin line, bro, because everybody and at every point is trying to like finagle some kind of like co-opting of what you feel is gonna be like your personal culture. You know what I mean? And it's mad annoying.
Needs people like this is why we say that the industry just needs more diversity, because if we had people like us, for example, calling the shots, not to say that like only people of color can call the shots, but like if we had people to participate in the conversation, we could be like, hold up, we can't say that because this is what it's going to translate to. Not like, I hate to say it, but white people won't really understand that because they're not a part of it. They're not a part of our cultures.
You know, I would argue that they do understand that, and there is like monetary value to understanding that and knowing how to leverage it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that the way they argued over an article makes me feel like they understand exactly why that article needs to be there. You know what I mean? So it's more intentful than I initially perceived it. Like just growing up, like I didn't perceive it to be so intentional when I saw it like this is gonna sound super freaking corny, but as a consumer, like as a consumer,
You can say that now
yeah,
because
yeah.
you're
As a
in the business.
consumer, I'm
Yep.
in the business, you know.
Yep.
So as a consumer, but realistically though, as a consumer, I felt like so much of it was due to ignorance. Like it's like, oh, you know, they pander because maybe they don't know the language, or maybe they feel like this is the way they approached it. Like maybe this is genuinely them. But I think that like just with the little bit of exposure I've gotten, I feel like they know what they're doing.
So
Like
then
I
why
feel
do you
Oh
like
yeah.
think
many,
I
those
feel
like
like to piggyback off that, it's probably, well, not probably, but there may be also like some stigmatization to that in the sense of like, or preconceived notions rather, that for the longest, right, it's been an issue. And so we've got that in our minds now of like, you could try to do this, but you won't ever get it. But I feel like we're getting to a point where they do get it, where white people do get it at this point. Like they may not act on it, they may not do it, they may not do it right, but I think we're getting to that point.
I
Not
don't
we're
know.
there yet.
That was
We're,
correct to me. Like, then why would they do like the Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad? Like, what
Okay.
company will willingly throw themselves into that mess? Like, oh, I got it, but I'm still
Pepsi.
So that could potentially have been like an intentional sort of viral stunt thing.
yeah.
I'm not going to get into
True.
specifics of like whether brands know what they're doing or not, like on that granular campaign level. But I think, you know, one of the things that I think is important, that, you know, as much as our focus tends to be specifically on race, specifically on like, you know, people of color, Black people, Indigenous, etc., one of the things I think the diversity conversation does not focus on enough, and I think that some folks get it, and like it's, you think there's like, you know, the majority, and then there's people who like talk about diversity and the importance of it, and then there's like an even smaller group in that. We need to talk about racial diversity. We need to talk about sexual orientation. We need to talk about neurodiversity, disabilities, visible and not visible. We need to talk about all of these other aspects, because what we tend to be talking about is like heteronormative, you know, dominant culture, perhaps white male, and when you look at the history of how advertising specifically grew in this in you know the US, but also just over the like cultural landscape, it was a white male Anglo-Saxon Protestant industry, right? And when you think, and when you look back at it, and like I've written a whole course on the history of diversity and inclusion in advertising. You look back in the early 1900s, again, white male Anglo-Saxon Protestant, perhaps fully heterosexual or a group, and they were the dominant culture. Greeks were excluded, Italians were excluded, and all non, you know, British folks of that background were excluded from the industry. And that was something that took like decades. It wasn't until like the 50s and the 60s that you really start to see more Greeks accepted. This was post World War II. And so now we're starting to hit a point where it's like, okay, Black folks are starting to get a little bit more visibility after the 60s, but then there was a spike and then a drop off, right? And, you know, women start to see their rights and their inclusion into the industry in the 70s with the women's rights movement. And there was a spike, and, you know, kind of have been fighting that fight ever since. And that's the thing. Even now when we see like the Black Lives Matter movement and we see a spike and there's a lot of conversation around it, it's going to drop off a little bit. But that's why we need folks like all of you having these conversations in platforms like this, because it forces change. And we've been here, like 2009, there was another push. There's a spike. And we see that a lot of folks have gotten into the industry. I mean, CCNY definitely does its part, like no doubt. And I think, you know, this is going to help further that. But it's a tough battle, you know, because you have the dominant culture and they're in positions of power and positions of hiring. And that's the uphill battle that you fight. How do you get that power? And it's by having a voice. And y'all are doing that. And that's what I appreciate most about it. And I know this is like the under wraps part of the party, but this is important for you to understand. You're going to be fighting this, but you have to find your allies. You have your allies at CCNY and you have your allies in this mix. And obviously alums and people who identify from similar backgrounds. But it's only going to get tough as you get further in. So keep fighting that fight and keep building those relationships, because that's where the power is, for better and for worse. Just be careful about.
This into the final cut. I'm gonna be like, this is the
Definitely.
episode,
You
and
can
then the uncut.
Definitely.
take a pic. Take it. Yeah.
Word.
Honestly, there's so much. There's so much good B-roll.
And
I know, right? Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
and
Whoever's still
Also-
recording.
I just want to say also, like, sometimes your allies are not gonna look like what you think. You know, if there's one thing,
No doubt.
it's like,
No doubt.
I forgot how the quote goes exactly, but it's like, it's something about like a bird, like a baby bird that a cow put dung on because it was cold. So like the cow shat on the bird because the bird was cold, and then to keep the bird warm. But the bird started
Okay.
like making noise, right? But then as the bird was making noise, like this wolf walked by and cleaned up the doo-doo off the bird, but then ate the bird.
I
But
want to understand this so bad. But
well, the
I
moral,
get it,
the moral is that not everybody who shits
Yeah,
on
he's
you means
Yeah, he's
to
gone.
do you harm, and not anybody that cleans you up means to do you good. And most
Ooh.
importantly, when you're knee, when you're
Ooh.
see what you said.
when you're
Yeah.
neck deep, and most importantly, when you're neck deep into some shit, keep your mouth shut. But
That had so many layers to it.
it's so many layers. It was such a good
At one
thing.
point, I was thinking about global warming.
Yeah, but it was like it's just because it's easy, and it was something you said, Hazare, and it's like, I don't mean to get all Thomas Sowell on anybody, because it's like, you know, I understand like belief systems are always, you know, they're very personal, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like, yes, you know, like we understand the foundations of this industry, and a lot of the industries that we grew up with kind of have these like deep-rooted WASP foundations, like white Anglo-Saxon Protestant foundations. But one thing that we have to be super conscious about is to not forget how to speak to each other, because I think that even when us ourselves are in positions to do certain things, sometimes we rely heavily on stereotypes too, and we have a hard time like speaking to each other plainly, right? Because we almost kind of defer to like, oh, you know, you look like me, so let me talk to you in these stereotypes, let's say, and that's usually passable. But sometimes it's like we got to remember to talk to each other right, you know, like talk to each other well, like remember that each of us, we may all look different and we kind of unify as the other, but then also within the other, we're a bunch of different others. Like I'm not Monique, and Monique is not Garcia, and Garcia is not Dakota, and Dakota is not Hazare, and Hazare is not Francini. And it's just like kind of like finding that balance of decency is always so difficult, because it's like it's so easy to rely on your stereotypes, you know?
It's intersectionality, you know, and really understanding that everyone has all of these different aspects to who they are, and being able to find whatever is a genuine means of connecting with them and just understanding them as a full person. I think that you're totally right. One of the things that as marketers we sometimes lose sight of is that, you know, we tend to focus on like demographics and all of these other ways of like really narrowly defining people versus losing, and you lose the humanity behind who people are, the life they live, the struggles that they have. And I think that's so important. And a lot of the best work that you see is from brands who understand that there are layers to people and they find ways to connect with them on that. And to your point, like the reason why I jumped on you the second you said as a consumer, like, yes, you can understand that as a person, but if you lose that side of you that like can't identify with people just on a human level, like your time is ticking. You know, you're going to lose that. You're going to like eventually you'll just fall into that sort of robot category and mindset. So like that's one of the things I love and appreciate about my new apartment, which is that like I'm right next to the projects and I'm like looking at it right out the window. Like my window is like right on the other side of the camera here. And like I always wake up and I remind myself that's where I came from. Like not those literal buildings right there, but like I was born and raised in the projects. I know, right? It's like, hey, that's my old apartment right there. But like it's so important not to lose that side of yourself. And you see that in a lot of folks. And that's what I love about the guests that we've been having, which is that these are people who stay grounded. and that is so important to keep. And you all are going to keep that as you go through this program, because I think CCNY does an incredible job of preparing you. I mean, we're not the Ivy Leagues, but I think that's actually to our benefit, because we all are intersectional in all these different ways. Like, I don't know, like, any of your cultural backgrounds, but at the same time, I can tell you all are an incredibly diverse group of people. Like, you walk into some agencies, this is not what you see. Like, this is in a way, it's its own kind of privilege, right? Because you were able to identify with people who identify as, or are identified by some folks as other. So I think this is going to be a great way of creating some sort of precedent. And you may find yourselves in an environment that start to look a little bit more like this, but it's because it took generations and it took folks like all of you to be able to make your foothold and then bring along others to do so. And this is my way of helping y'all do that. So I know you're going to have to do that for other people once you get out there. So Eggie,
Facts.
you should be posting some jobs in the next like 6
each
months or year, and
each one bring one.
internships. That's what I'm saying, right? Each one teach one.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here too.
Yeah.
But that's the curse and the blessing.
Definitely. I mean, next semester, I definitely will speak to you guys about, like, we need a guest that's gonna speak about just like the transition from, like, you know what I mean, like the transition.
We're telling
That's why I said give me like 3 years, because I need to find my footing still. It's difficult to walk in some rooms and walk into some meetings and like not put like my podcast voiced on. You know what I mean? Like not put some extra sauce on it, because it's just
switching sound like. I'm curious. Like when you step into that executive office.
well, I've never been in an executive office, but like I've tried in my career up to this point to kind of stay steady with the way I speak. Whether yeah, like, and it's just because I find confidence in individuals like you guys know like D'Souza and Merrill.
Yeah.
D'Souza and Merrill, they did an interview with Obama. I love those guys because they did an interview with Obama in their voice, and their voice is like Bronx, New York, voice. And it's like, yo, you could sit down and speak to the president using your voice. And it's like, in terms of like me, like entering the workforce, like previous to now, it's always kind of been like, you got to tone it down. You better stop shortening all those words, like speak in fully articulated sentences. It's always kind of been this thing, whether it was like, when they make you cut your hair or shit like that. It's all these conforming things that you do along the way that it's hard to kind of get out of, because, particularly like entering this industry, it's like they want my voice. Like they want me because I speak like this. You know what I mean? Because I have these insights. It's what's it called? It's like it's a benefit, like it's a plus. It's like it's attractive, but it's difficult to really kind of believe that when you first walk into those rooms and like you see the people, and the vast majority of them don't look like you. The vast majority of them don't talk like you. The vast majority of them don't even they don't have the same cultural references that you have. And you, like, at least for me, I keep saying you, but I mean me every time I say you. Me, I be feeling like, yo, damn, is my language right? Does this email make sense? Like, do I sound stupid? Like, it's just all these things that kind of come in because it's like you feel like the different one,
But that's the thing about what you said, like something that resonated with me, like when you're talking about we're unified as like other cultures, but there are other cultures within us. Me speaking on the Asian American aspect of things, I live in a neighborhood full of like other Asian Americans. So what was interesting about that, because I'm half Filipino, half Ecuadorian, right? When people see me, they kind of see a mixture of that. And like with when we met with Bennett, for example, he saw me and he was like, my fellow like Latinos, and I was like, yeah. But I wasn't raised under that culture by any means. So like, especially for example, when I come into rooms with a lot of diversity, like in this group right here, I even feel like the odd one out, because I feel like there's a level of like where Black people and Latin people can really relate on a lot of things that like my Asian experience, like I mean Asian American experience, will not allow me to really relate on that level. and there's a level of like discomfort in like I should feel comfortable because I'm in a group with other people who are the others like I am, but I don't, because I recognize that I didn't have the same prejudice and racism experiences that they have. And it makes me feel like it's, you know how you ever heard of like the people who are like Asian Americans aren't really people of color? It's kind of like that. It goes to that
Model minority.
Model minority positioning.
The model minority experience.
Freaking marketing, man, I tell you.
I don't relate to, because when they talk about Asian Americans and that, they're talking about East Asian Americans. They're talking about Asian Americans with like how many later, like the, you know what I mean? Like lighter skin tone than I am. So then, even in that, it's like, where do I fit? You know what I mean? And that's kind of where it comes to full circle here with the podcast. Like,
we were just waiting for that one.
I know, right?
Really
somebody has to drop it at some
Just at the beginning of a conversation, like, nah, how do I do this?
How am I gonna work this in?
Yeah. On that note, that's on period. Thanks, guys, for joining.
That's on period.
Yeah.
Yo, Dakota, so how do you feel? And Francini, I feel like I haven't heard you in 47 minutes. Like, I would love to hear what you think. I mean, I feel like Francini is Dominican. And I know because I've seen that wall. It's the kitchen. Like, it's the kitchen for me. I saw the poster, I see the wallpaper, and I see the cabinets, and I'm just like, Dominican. Indubitably. But, you know, it's just, you know, de lo mío. So I was like, but yeah, I just want to hear from you guys. Like, you guys are listening, so I just want to hear from you guys, honestly. Like, no pressure. I don't even have a question, because it's like, I don't know how to.
There's so much pressure.
Okay, you know what? I have a question.
1,000 kilograms. You're being crushed right now.
I do have a question, actually, and this would be more for Francini, because we had class together. So, but Dakota, I'm sure you can experience this as like new to the program. But I think we're all new to this program, right? Dakota, me, and Francini, right? It's our first semester.
Different levels.
Levels.
No, I think
is their first semester?
Dakota's not. I mean, Dakota's not.
But we're all new to the program.
Yeah, but she hasn't taken like 209, 210 yet.
Yeah, I'm taking your class next semester, actually.
Okay, well then, so you might understand what I mean when I say this, but did you guys hear that?
Mm-hmm. Is that a train?
It's the sound effects. We're experimenting with the new sound effects board.
You're about to
be pressing buttons in the background.
You're about to be railroaded, so hang on.
This goes back to the professor's point about like talking about with more inclusivity and more diversity in the industry. But one thing I really noticed, and I think Francini can agree with this, is that like in our introduction classes for like public relations and advertising, the entire program was filled with just women. Like, I think there was 2, maybe 1 boy in each of our classes, and that was a shock to me. Because when I come into rooms like this, for example, you see like strongmen like Eggie and Professor Javier Garcia, and then I'm like, where are the men here? Like, I'm like, no, but you're not in the program.
No, it's okay.
You're not in the program. Sorry, that's what I meant. So. And to me, that was like really like great to see, because that was not great to see, but like inspiring, because like, wow, like women are really starting to take over this industry, at least like
they have. Yeah.
You just hear this one car honking in the background.
Yeah.
You want?
They agree too.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, preach.
They're just like,
preach.
They're like, I'll give you a agree. So my questions to the ladies are, what are your thoughts about like moving closer into this program now that we finished our first semester? We've finished the introduction classes. What hopes do you have for like as women in this industry and your contribution to like graduating and then therefore like entering the industry as like women of color, especially?
I just want to keep making strides and bringing down the gates and bringing other talented people in, not just because they're diverse, but because they're talented as well. So that's what I hope to do. And I just want to keep pushing and doing as much as I could, even if I don't know how to do it. I just want to keep pushing.
Even if
And I like that. And I like that our classes are filled with women because, like, I work for AT&T, and it's very male dominant in all aspects. So I kind of like that.
I think. Oh, sorry, Dakota.
Dakota was just about to
Her
speak.
speak, Eggie.
My fault. And I was. You know what? I'll tell you afterwards to make it even more ironic.
Oh my god. So I take like my actual like classes next semester, but I met somebody in my English class, so random, that was in ad PR already. And she was so cool with me. Like, she helped me, like, you know, figure things out with the ad PR, like, major and everything, with like what professors are better, like, to take, like, easier or harder. And I think it's super I think it's super.
Don't take Garcia.
Take my class then. Yeah, right.
I am taking your class. But it's super empowering to just like be able to relate to someone, especially even more on like a personal level, like with inner struggles, social struggles, just like image wise too. I think it's really good to just be able to like sit back and be like, okay, I have someone to like vent to at the end of the day. You know, I think I hope that there's even more women that go into the major and that they're all friendly, because I've met some mean people. Okay.
Oh no.
But I don't know.
Index, it helps.
It's just, you know, it's like everything's super competitive these days. Like everything's like a competition. So I think people lose track of, you know, their like inner self, like what's actually like being a good person is. But
you mentioned that, like, competition, because I feel like even in this industry, but also outside of this industry, people put women against each other on competitive terms constantly. And it feels like even in this industry, or even in any industry, it's like there's a lot of room for everybody else, but the women got to compete for the small spots. And that doesn't make sense to me. And I want to point back to what Francini said about, I mean, I know how to do certain things, but I'm gonna still try. That's the one biggest contribution that I know for a fact pretty much every woman is going to bring to the table. Like, and that goes back to the Natalie episode as well. Bring the extra markers. You know what I mean? Like, it's the little things that make up. And we didn't talk enough about Francini in the episode. I want to take the opportunity, but Francini like took over the responsibilities and roles when me and Eggie were like overwhelmed with all the things that we already had to do, and we were kind of like, oh, like, are we gonna get this done? Are we gonna reach out to clientele? And Francini was like, nobody asked me to do this, but I'm gonna do it. And then she killed it. And then like she became the person that like we relied on. And that's a prime example of like a woman in the industry, in this industry. And I want to see like that keep going forward with like the new introduction classes, and as these women move up the ladder, like I'm excited to see that aspect of it. So
well, when we have folks like you creating the blueprint for what success looks like, I think the future looks pretty bright.
It does. I would say so too.
Very bright. Very bright, honestly.
No, I'm gonna jump in front of you, Eggie, and say that I gotta go because I still have a job and I don't want to lose it.
Let's keep it that way.
Job, bro. Did you not realize we started a podcast? You got to quit your job now.
But completely aside from everything that has nothing to do with anything that we're talking about, who has Steam? Professor? Yeah.
Yeah.
My heating is electric. No dad joke will go unsaid.
Apron, it just grows. Okay.
What I wanted to say before I rudely interrupted Dakota is that one thing that I try to be super conscious about is that I feel like I do, if I get rolling, my personality could be a little dominant. And it could kind of shut out other people in the room. So, and this, I guess, is the question for the women. Like, I try to be super conscious about like not interrupting women and not kind of like jumping ahead of them when they're going to speak. For that sole reason is just like, I don't want to eclipse or like kind of like, you know what I'm talking about. I feel like, and this goes back to my question, as women in the program, do you feel like there is enough space created with y'all when you guys collaborate with, let's say, stronger personalities or like male dominant personalities. I don't know if my question is coming across clearly, but
and now I see why it's ironic when you
yeah,
interrupt.
it's super ironic.
I would say, like, based off of my experience, and I think Francini can understand when I say this because we were in the same classes, but like I said, our classes were like majority of women. There were probably like one or two guys, right? And even with the class of like the women, I noticed there's a difference, like in times of like conversation. Like it feels like everyone has to like really jump in to get their chance to speak, and there isn't always like opportunity for that. But when you have conversations like with men in general, I would say they don't need to think about that. They just speak, they just talk. And I feel like I just have more of an extroverted personality that allows me to just like cut people off. And I have more personal experience dealing with men like in my life. So like if Eggie starts talking and rambling for 30,000 minutes, I'm like, get my word in. But that's with Eggie. For example, like in the Bennett episode, there were lots of times where Eggie was like, you got to cut him off. You got to cut him off. And I was like, I can't talk over him. I'm a woman. Like, I hate to say it, but that's kind of like how it felt. And then Eggie comes in like way more natural about it. And he was like, haha, that's funny. But
yeah. I will say that would be an episode that I would be interested in hearing, kind of like a ladies kind of thing, or like, you know, like the women's approach to thing, because it's like I feel like a lot of guys are not aware of the fact that they're intimidating, or they're not aware of the fact that they're filling up the whole room with their nonsense. So it's kind of like I would be super interested in hearing like women speak about their experiences through that, and even kind of providing advice for both sides, because I think that there's guys that do it unknowingly just because like we you know, like for speaking for myself, I'm just so eager to talk all the time. Like it's not like, yo, let me shut her up. Like I'll interrupt. Like I'll interrupt anybody, you know, but with that being said, you do have to be more conscious about those things, and it feels like a great avenue for like kind of expressing those things, because not everyone has, you know, an extroverted personality like Monique, let's say, to be able to find her spots and be able to lean her opinion in. So that's always something that's interested me, like how do women find the spaces to get their word in, you know what I mean? Particularly as you go into an industry that I want to say the PR side appears to be way more women dominated. In a lot of the ad meetings, there's a lot of women there, but I'm sure that they have the experience that probably at the collegiate level, you guys are still building. And same for myself. Like it sounds like men wouldn't be interested in this, but any men worth their salt would want to hear a conversation with women telling men how they could be treated better, you know, specifically in the workplace, you know. So, but that just thought came to mind. Ideas for next year. File it with Hazare's files.
Yeah. I mean, I'll jump in just to add like the little bit of insight that I can as, you know, a male who's been in the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely layers to it. I think there is the gender component. I mean, if you look into and want to do some research, there's a organization called the 3% Movement, or 3% Conference, I think is the event, but I think it's called the 3% Movement, where there was a study that only 3% of the creative directors in the advertising industry were women, and 97% were male. Yeah, it was like just like crazy disproportionate. And so I think part of it, and part of the struggle, is that you see that there are women gravitating towards certain types of roles, and finding themselves hitting a glass ceiling perhaps. But there's also the component of like you all were saying, there's like introverted personalities, extroverted personalities, and that's part of the struggle of like, you have certain folks who just their voice is the thing that commands everything. But it's important, and I'm like a super introvert, like super introvert. But the thing is that I know the value in what I have to say, and I will jump in when I need to because this needs to be heard. And I think it's important that you find that there's a balance between people who know how and when to listen and really be, open to hearing what other voices sound like versus their own. But then you have some folks who are just like, my word is gospel and I'm going to say it. And, I'm going to listen to myself and not really anyone else. And the thing is, you find that that is also not exclusive to gender, because I've seen all sorts of types and worked with all sorts of types in this industry and understand that that can be the case. So I think really what you find is that leadership looks like knowing when to shut up and just hear someone else out and to create the space for people to feel like they can, be heard. And I think part of it is also, again, like an individual sort of personal professional development thing, where as you get more as you get a little bit more senior, as you get some more experience, know what you're talking about, you'll feel comfortable and know how to jump in. And sometimes, it's just your personality, and like you kind of just have to figure that out. But again, I'm also saying that with someone as someone who has the privilege of 10 years of finding my voice and having been a CCNY student who is like forever quiet. Like I was the fly on the wall. And the thing is, now, I guess bad metaphors, I can be the wall, right? And so now it's like, how do I help other people find their voice? And part of it is me using my voice, right? Creating stuff like this, being in front of the classroom and being the loudest voice in the room, and then knowing when to shut up so that y'all can do some awesome work and giving you the sort of place and environment that you need. It's part of, there's the whole saying of, you want to be the one who plants the seed for the tree that you don't get to sit under, right? And I think that's what it's about in creating things like this, and understanding how to create opportunities for other people to really shine. You're going to work with some bad bosses and you're going to work with some good bosses, and their gender is going to be irrelevant. You'll ultimately eventually find, but it does play a factor into it. And I think you do have to own sort of who you are and what, just organically, biologically, et cetera, and find ways to maximize that, and find people who understand that, regardless of what they see in front of you, there is talent and they bring that out of you, and know when to shut up at the same time, like right now.
That's a really interesting skill that, like, yeah, regardless of gender, I think anyone who's introverted, like, if they want to be in a communications field, not that they need to, but imagine how much more powerful those individuals would be and how much more powerful the group would be if we had the introverts like contribute to the conversation. Like that would be like, we'd be killer, right? Like for Professor, you're a great example of that. Like you say you're an introvert, and like imagine if you were just always quiet. The whole dynamic, this whole project would be so different. But like, not to discredit Eggie, we need people like you as well. Like if you weren't talking all the time, would we have a podcast? No, we would not. Like, did you see me on that first episode? It was like I'm talking now, but that first episode I was like, so here's my questions. Like,
Yeah.
people who can like have the conversation.
I was feeling that more about like, once you're recording a podcast, it's like a lot of that stuff is out the window. I feel like the part that like I really like try to focus on is when we're actually collaborating, like when we're speaking in the chat. You know what I mean? Like when you're trying to voice your opinion in a chat room where it's like there's so many voices, you know what I mean? But I will say that we should definitely keep this recording and timestamp when Garcia defined it right there about like because that's probably the better episode rather than trying to focus on like helping the women find their voice in a room full of men. It's more about just, understanding. I'm going to paraphrase here because you freestyled it so eloquently, but it's understanding when what you're saying is important to the conversation. Because I think that is a good conversation in and of itself, right? Because it's not just about talking for the sake of talking. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, you need to know when your words have value, right? And when your words need to be a part of the conversation. So that's probably the better episode right there. But yeah, so
Eggie, you do. I always do the close.
The clothes? What you putting this
You gotta
out?
do like an aftermath. You can't just be like, "Okay, bye." You know what I mean? That's
All right. Thanks for listening. Peace.
That's all, folks.
I'm deep.
Oh.
You can edit that in post. Add it in. Add the effect.
Yeah.
Put the Looney Tunes.
Throw some reverb on the hand.
I'm not a magician, guys. I can't just like conjure up.
No, just go on YouTube and pull a clip of like the ending of a Looney Tunes episode and just boom, pop it in.
Oh yeah, that's a brilliant idea. I'll do
Copyright infringement be damned.
Yeah.
that.
No.
We're not getting paid for this anyway, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's parody,
I'll copyright
Garcia.
everything.
It's parody.
It's parody, yeah.
it's
Making fun
parody.
of ourselves.
Yeah, it's parody.
Right.
Yeah.
Fun.
Before we leave, I just wanted to say thank you to Eggie for spearheading this project and
Oh,
being
man,
like,
yeah.
the brain behind it all and putting down the groundwork for us, and also to Monique for stepping up and co-hosting, and Dakota for
And for the
doing
editing.
music.
Oh my God.
Yes, and
Yeah.
for editing as well, and you, Professor, for giving us the freedom to do what we wanted to do and believing that we could do this. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you,
Thank you, Francini.
You all are why I do what I do.
Just know that a spear by itself is just a shitty knife. So
Ooh.
you guys were definitely what held everything together, because this would have never lived past the idea stage without all the heavy lifting that you did. So thank you in return for everything that you guys did, because it was an amazing experience for me, honestly, just because I was there by myself at inception, and then you guys kind of followed in right in the first trimester and just were the perfect midwives for this entire project. So, and I don't mean midwives because you guys are ladies. I just mean midwives because the podcast is a baby, you know. But yeah, thank you. Like, this is probably one of the things like I'm most proud of this project than anything I've done in my entire academic career, just because like Garcia said, it's just not a grade, it's not money. The motivation is just us. You know what I'm saying? Doing something for the sake of ourselves is it felt special. So
that's this was a better end than the Looney Tunes thing. Okay. I think we inspired people. But
oh, last thing, since I am graduating, you guys will probably never see me again. So it was nice meeting you. Peace. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you guys for tuning in with Where We Fit, a podcast celebrating the unique paths and voices of the marketing and communications industry. Brought to you by the CCNY AAF Student Chapter. Make sure to follow us on our Instagram accounts for all the latest updates at Where We Fit Pod and at AAF City College. We'll see you in the next episode.